Lisa, thank you so much for joining the Thrive Forward podcast today. Sometimes I feel like I'm going to say like when I say my own podcast name, but
I've done that before.
Maybe I have. Maybe I need more stage presence coaching from you.
You're fabulous. You're fabulous, just as you are.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. We are excited to have you because I know that 2020 has been a big year for a lot of folks, processing a lot of emotions, going through two big, huge pandemics. A lot of times we refer to one pandemic, but we really do have two coinciding with each other right now. One health pandemic and one social pandemic.
Yep.
So let's rewind, not fast forward. I think we both would love to fast forward, but let's rewind to, as the pandemic started to unfold in the US, how that transformed you this year.
Well, 2020 has been just a soul-searching year, and on a personal and a professional level. And I think I love being able to be on podcasts where I can just talk about that openly and freely, because let's be honest, our personal and our professional lives just smash up together. Yeah. And if we don't acknowledge that even to begin with, we're doing ourselves a disservice. So this year has been an incredible smash up for me. Personally, I lost one of my best friends, of just an incredible mentor and friend and powerful, intelligent Black woman. And I only say Black because it's part of where I'm going to go. And that happened just, 10 days prior to George Floyd here in Minneapolis. So for me, that mourning and grieving period was very intense and really pushed me into 2020 in a new way. And that's all on top of, 2 months prior, us being on quarantine or lockdown or whatever version it was at that time. So just personally trying to figure out how to grieve my heart in the middle of this civil unrest that was happening in my city as well as all over the world, and then figuring out how to just manage my family and being together, and so much of that, and what was beautiful about it and what was challenging about it, all those things. So from a personal level, like so many of us, I was in that space, but the grieving part really took hold of me for quite some time. I think it's going to be with me heavy for quite some time. And then from a professional level, it was phenomenal for me, because the work that I was doing prior to this, we were doing a lot of events, live events, which are so captivating and powerful because you are in person and loving and hugging and celebrating each other. And there's something really powerful about that. But not having those live events, the time investment, the human resources, the financial resources, all of those combined gave me the opportunity and the freedom to actually really dive into what is it about the work that I really love, and what is my purpose, and who do I want to touch. And so I think just so much has happened. So for me personally and professionally, it's been a hard year on my heart, but also a beautiful way to blossom and get a deeper understanding of who I am and what I want to do.
Oh, I think that's so beautiful. And having had the pleasure to walk alongside you with some of this has been fantastic. But I think what you just illustrated for us in words is what so many people have felt, because life didn't stop with a pandemic, right? There have been so many things. I have 4 clients in 6 months that lost their dads.
Yep.
All unexpectedly. And life will continue to happen for us. But it's almost like life has done this freeze and speed at the same time, right? So it's frozen in the sense of like, now we can introspectively look at a lot of spaces in our life. I love that you say, like, being able to pause with your family and see the good things while also seeing the things that you're like, oh, now I get all of the things that irritate me about you.
Yeah, right. I remember now.
Right.
Yeah.
And your kids are a little bit older than my kids, and so that provides all different types of dynamics, right, depending on the age of your kids and depending on whether you're working in a corporate environment or as an entrepreneur. We're all experiencing these things, and what I want people to feel is that you're not alone, and you do a great job of creating community. Can you share with the audience kind of what you've done? You said that the business has gone so well, and I think it's because you, as a leader in that business, have done a phenomenal job of creating community that has been something that a lot of people have felt lacking right now in
Yeah.
2020.
I think really it's the root of my business is really deeply rooted in storytelling and vulnerability. And for those out there who don't know what I do, we'll talk about it in a minute. We're in the middle of a big rebrand launch, but the work that I do is really working very closely to help women unveil their stories. And in unveiling your story, whether that be through self-awareness, reflection, writing, or I like to take women to the stage to share publicly, that journey is really powerful. And I help women to do that. And in doing that, we also are reclaiming our power because we're owning and we're taking control of the stories of the past, the stories of the present, and who we can become. And so there's narrative deeply intertwined in what I do. It's the narrative we tell ourselves, but not just in our minds. When you start to write and share that, there is this healing and power that comes through that. And so that's the work that I do. And this year has just been, continues to just be a great opportunity to help women across the country, now that we're doing online, to be able to have those conversations and open up again the vulnerability piece of what it means to share and lead and really connect with people.
Yeah. Sharing and leading and connecting. You talk about this in terms of how it brings us together. We're in a time where our country does feel incredibly divisive and divided. How have you created opportunities for those conversations to create an opportunity to connect and share?
Yeah. I have done a lot more community events this year in light of a lot of the civil unrest. Being someone who is a multiracial woman in this country, and obviously I've my entire life had a tremendous diverse group of friends and family. So I have been doing a lot more community events, and we've been having, just very raw and open conversations. And that really did start back in May. And I just continue to open the dialogue and bring different people together, which is what I've always done. On the side, I'd like to say, I am a bridge builder because I naturally have done that my entire life. And I think it's really funny as you age or you get older or whatever you want to call me. I feel like there are things when I was young that I didn't want to take on. I didn't want to be that person that was always bringing people together. Like, it was always me. I was always bringing different people together. I was always like, it just felt like always, always, always. And I didn't want to be that person when I was younger. I just wanted to do me. And as I get older, I'm realizing that is one of my superpowers. Like, that is what makes me me. And it's interesting how for so long I've always denied that. And I think what makes this business and this platform really powerful is the connecting piece, because it's not just in the stories. There's something in the way I lead and the way I can hold hands with different kinds of people, that has also made this platform a place for women to heal and grow, but to really understand each other. And I say that through stories because that is historically how women have always shared wisdom. I mean, there's so many books about it, you know.
Yes.
I mean, I think about like The Red Tent, and I think about the Joy Luck Club, some of these books from a while ago where it's women have always, you know, shared that way. And so
Even if you think of something as simple as a book club, right? Like
right,
that,
exactly.
like that is not, we joke about it, like you go to read a book, but it's literally like everybody is sharing what's happening in that space.
Yeah, pieces of them, pieces.
You have such a great way of having women open their souls to really create space of authenticity. For those of you that are listening, Lisa and I talked for the first time in depthly, and I shared things with her I have never shared with a lot of people. And it's because she creates this warmth and inviting spirit to be able to do that. But how do you get these people to open up into a space that allows them to essentially create that, you know, crossing of the bridge so that they can experience and care for each other in ways that they might not have been able to do before?
So I could take that question on, like, yes, part of it is me, and part of it is the energy and the expectations that the women around me know that I have. So for me personally, I don't know, my life has been hard. And it has been full of blessings. And, you know, I have family history that has been hard, and generations that have been hard and full of blessings. And they're not just challenging, there's trauma, there's tragedy. I mean, it's full and rich of stuff, right? So I don't know. I think in my deepest and darkest moments, I realized that I needed to look at people in a more meaningful way. Like it felt right for me to reach beyond the surface. And so I think over time, I've been able to give of myself and to see and hear the person across from me. And I think it has truly been this storytelling journey. I mean, when you start to really own the pieces of your story and you actually are out there sharing them, there's so much power in that experience because you own it. Nobody can tell you what your story is, and all of a sudden you're like, this happened and this happened. And it's not, when we do storytelling, it's not just about explaining the experience, right? When I tell you, okay, this happened to me and that was really hard, but when I say to you, I could no longer go on. My heart was so heavy and the world felt like it was collapsing on me. Like when you start to express your emotions in a very deep, meaningful way, you're opening up for the world to see you as you are. And it's so powerful and beautiful, even in the shadows. I can't even tell you. And I know I didn't answer your question because I started going on about whatever I'm talking about in storytelling.
No, I think from an aspect of you're describing vulnerability is what you're doing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you're describing vulnerability in the sense that people have the power to own their stories. And in a society where we continue to tell each other that like we have to be this stoic mentality, it's really those people who come across as vulnerable that we actually cling to more.
Yeah. And we are all human. I mean, it's so generic, but at the events that I have, I take these women on a journey, and we explore together, and they write their stories and they take them to the stage. Then I have a live event. Things are different now with COVID, but I have a live event and they share their vulnerable spaces in a public setting, in a safe space. And to answer a little bit of your question before, the women know, and it's something I say immediately at my events, is this is a space that we withhold judgment. and we offer love and grace. And that's all my expectation is. And that is my whole expectation for this hour or 3 hours that you're choosing to spend with us, is that whatever judgment, whatever ideas you have in your mind, that you just open your heart in this moment to offer this woman a space to be seen and heard and to give freely. And our gift to her is to just embrace her. And whether that's online or in person, that's our gift, and that's what the space is for. And I don't know, such a powerful journey, and I absolutely love the work that I do. And vulnerability is important. It's important in understanding and building these bridges.
Yeah, and maybe we can even rewind a little more and you can share with the audience how you chose to be vulnerable and leave corporate America in order to start your business you love to do now, which is helping people unfold their stories and empower themselves. What was it like for you in that transition period? How did you decide that it was something that you wanted to do?
That's a long story. And every time I go into it, I always am trying to figure out how do I synthesize.
Abbreviate.
But the reality is that I left corporate at a time when I was really deep into my writing, and my writing became a place of solace for me. And oftentimes when I talk in larger groups, I say my poetry saved me. And I still believe that to be very true, because I was at a time in my life where I pushed a lot of people away. And for those out there who believe in a God, my God was trying to speak to me through my own words. Um, and I decided to walk away and explore publishing a book. And that journey itself kind of led me to wanting other women to have a space to heal and write and kind of discover themselves. But leaving corporate America was very, very difficult and essential for my own personal and professional growth. It was, I've learned a lot from vulnerability and taking chances. And I don't even know what to say about that big leap. It was freeing, very freeing, but it was also something that I think was essential for my survival at the time. But I don't know that I knew it in that way. But I needed this journey, and this journey is what gives me the space and the heart to be able to do the same with other women, especially corporate women, because I know what it feels like to be in that land. I know what it feels like to be an entrepreneur now, right? But
Right.
it's a different animal.
It is. And I think what you're describing is maybe what a lot of women are feeling right now. I've read so many articles about how, due to COVID and due to kids having to be at home, how many more responsibilities women actually really are taking on right now. And how do we have the time to be able to explore those things without breaking? And I think often as women, we get to a point where we are at that stage of like, I need to do something or I'm going to break. How do we uncover that strength before we break? Is that something that's even possible?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think it's possible in connecting with women. Women need women. Um, you can go on Google online forever and read a gazillion articles and books. There's something very core in connecting with each other um, that really helps us through a lot of difficult times. And I think that that's really important, is this connecting piece. And it is hard. It is really hard to be a working mom. If that is what you are and you choose to be, it is a very difficult path. And um, depending on what your values are, as and what work means to you and what family means to you, that can play itself out in many different ways. But I think we need each other to help each other through it. And the only way that we can help each other through it is to be honest with each other. And you need to be vulnerable in order to be really honest. And
Yeah.
it's a hard road, but if you're a driven, ambitious woman, you're willing to take that road, and you likely are going to break because you live a lifetime and tough things happen. So when you break, who is your sisterhood? You know, who is your community that's going to allow you to break and rise again?
Mm-hmm.
Because the world needs women, and the world needs us to rise again, and we're not going to not break because that's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're also like we're bendy. So like when I say break, like we do break, but like we get
Right.
back up again. I don't know,
I
like a
know. Some people don't like the word break or broken. I know.
yeah, but I use it
But
because I think that I've seen so many women right now that are just like they're like I can barely like get it together.
yeah,
um, and I'm having a hard time. You know, like I saw this post the other day where it was like from 9:56 to 9:58 I'm working, and then I'm answering kids' questions, and then like we are so creative at figuring out how to work in the pockets. I also wonder if what we've learned to do by doing those things, have we learned to be so stoic that we are almost unvulnerable and realize that maybe we can't open ourselves up to other women and we're prideful. I know for me, especially starting out in my career and having such a trajectory growth into leadership so fast at such a young age,
yeah,
for me, I was like, I can't show anybody that I'm going to mess up. Like, I
yeah,
have to be, as my sister refers to it, Pinterest perfect. Uh,
yeah,
and that's so how do we move from this element of Pinterest perfect into vulnerability so that we truly can, because we all crave it. We all
yeah,
crave
yeah,
community. Especially as women, there's something just inherently in us, in our biological makeup, as you said, that makes us want to connect. So how do we, as another strong woman who I know was very, you know, like strong and ambitious and still is, but you've created this level of vulnerability. How have you transitioned, and what could some women who are at that space of pivoting in their, not just their life, but just like how they pivot and how they show up?
I think for me personally, and this is something we talk a lot about on my platform, you know, especially when we're having community conversations, is this is my lived experience, right?
Mm,
And I have wisdom and I have advice and knowledge to share, and it may or may not apply to you. But one of the things that really helped me was I had to own all the dark places.
mm,
Like I couldn't show up for me or my job or my family or my friends in ways that I can now because I am completely me now. I'm not ashamed of any part of the journey. I could be maybe not proud. I could realize I made mistakes. I could realize, okay, that wasn't my fault, or whatever the tragedy or challenge or trauma was. I can look at you and say that that's my story. That is my journey. And I think when you start to take those masks off, you're able to lead with vulnerability. You're able to reach out and guide and connect other people because your ego isn't in the way as much as it used to be, right? Because ego is ego,
mm-hmm.
it's human nature, right?
Right.
So, but all these things start to become secondary, and you start to shine and you start to thrive in ways that only you can. But I think you have to own those spaces, the shadows and the dark and all the things that you're like, gosh, if my VP ever knew that X, Y, and Z, um,
Mm-hmm.
but what if your VP did know X, Y, and Z?
Yeah. And what if your VP had the same experience?
Right.
Or what if somebody that reported to you had the same experience? And, you know, by you being vulnerable, empowered them to be vulnerable. That's what I always say too. Like, we have no idea the impact we're going to have on the people that are around us, whether we think of it from a hierarchical standpoint or a linear standpoint,
Yeah.
where we have so many people around us that are impacts to us or we are to them. I think of this one like small part of me being vulnerable in my professional life when I was starting to like unpack some of these things. And it was just the simple fact of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I would put it on my calendar, my corporate job, as therapy. And I would make it public to everybody. So my employees that were direct reports and my boss and anybody else could see I can't schedule anything with Shannon because she's going to be at therapy.
Yeah.
I got ridiculed for it, I'll be honest. Like, I mean, some people were like, why do you need therapy? And I was like, well, maybe you do because you're clearly asking me something that maybe you No, I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding.
They're ready to go there.
Yeah, I mean, it created so many opportunities for me to have conversation about mental health with individuals and what I was struggling with. And you talk about those dark spaces, we all have them. Mm-hmm. We all have them because we are human. And in our humanity, we mess up. And we also have the opportunity to grow from those places. And I think 2020 has allowed us to see that, you know, personally, we maybe haven't been doing things or living the way we've projected ourselves to live, or maybe we've got blind spots to things or thought things were better than they were, or just really didn't even think things were there. And like, let's be real and honest and talk about it in terms of race and equity. And like, this is the biggest pandemic. And now we're experiencing a health pandemic, and now we're experiencing it on levels of, you know, inequalities on that end too, and everything is kind of pummeling together. And so I guess what I am trying to say in my messed up way of going around and around in circles is that like the dark spaces are okay.
Yeah.
And when you have community that isn't falsely associated, right? Like, it's really true that you can be vulnerable with those individuals.
Well, you can be vulnerable and you can be strong and you can be intelligent and you can be going to therapy and you can be all those things, because we are all those things.
We're multifaceted.
Absolutely. And it's really when we talking about vulnerability and leading and conversations, especially in the workspace, in the workforce, I think about a Zoom chat I just literally had. And it was a woman I had known in my corporate experience. And she showed up. This is the first time we had chatted in years. And she showed up totally prepared, because if you work for a Fortune 100 company, you are not going to any superior person without being prepared. And when I left corporate, I probably was somewhat of a superior to her. So there was some level that I she wanted to make sure that she was prepared, right? Totally respect her for that, because I would have done the same thing. And she started going through her list. And I'm not going to mention her name here, so I'll just use your name, Shannon. I just said, Shannon, it's me. It's just me. And the whole space, and we're on Zoom, right? I mean, how intimate and vulnerable can you be, right?
Yeah.
The whole space changed. And I already know she's a brilliant woman. I already know she's going through transition. But the whole space changed, and the conversation just flowed, and it was real, and it was honest, and it was exactly what was needed. And so I think in being vulnerable and just allowing people to be is a very powerful way to lead, because leading is about connections. It's about relationships. It's about building trust. And how do you do that if you don't know who you're talking to?
Mm.
Um, so
And I
I feel
think,
like I'm ranting now.
no, you're not. No, and you ranting is okay. That is absolutely all right on this podcast. So I think even like in that process, what I took away too is a aspect that I think we don't necessarily do enough at. And I am absolutely someone who is constantly reminding myself of this. And I actually think that I'm good at it, but I got feedback in my career once that I wasn't. Uh, and sometimes I think that was projectile, but
It's hard to
so
say.
it's hard to say, but listening to each other and really like listening to learn and
Mhm.
not listening to respond. And for a long time, I was a listen to respond type of person. Because my career, I kind of have to do that.
Yep.
But in listening to learn, we gain so much more knowledge of the other person, right? And their, as you said, lived experiences. And are there things that we can take away from that space in order to grow ourselves? And I think that it's almost like it should be a class.
Well,
Listening.
there's a lot of classes that should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we all know it. I mean, the best salesperson, the best CEO or leader or manager, even, team lead, whatever people want to title themselves as, they understand people and they're willing to listen and hear. And I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, business is about people and relationships. And if you
And
can't
life
people
is, right? Like how we are relational people, and
Mhm.
we can choose to treat those relationships with kindness and grace and love, or we can, treat them in a toxic manner that isn't allowing us to all grow together. So let's talk about let's transition into like the growth topic, because you and I could like get real deep.
I know.
Trust me, go on a
We
walk
could,
with Lisa and I around a
we
lake
could.
and we'll solve all the world's problems
Yeah.
together.
Wouldn't that be beautiful? Yes.
Um, so let's talk about these next steps. So as 2020 has transcended for you and you've created some of these communities and you've dug deeper into your business and explored things with your family and juggled all of the things that you have juggled, what is the rest of the year have in store for you? And what does Lisa Harris look like going forward?
Yes. Well, I am really excited because, well, as we're recording this, so right now we're in October something, 8th. We're
Yeah.
October 8th today. Tomorrow is my sister's birthday, actually.
Yay,
Um,
happy birthday, sister.
yeah. Well, as we're recording this, we are a couple weeks out for a rebrand that we are doing here. And when this comes out, we'll have been rebranded, right?
Yes, will
Okay.
be.
Okay, wonderful. So I can just give your audience a little idea of where we're at. So we are transitioning from Fashion Meets Poetry to our rebrand, which is Lisa Harrison Company. And this really does shine a spotlight on the transformational work that I have been really doing with the women over the past 4 years. And prior to that, there was more focus on the events. And we never really talked about what I do, what I'm really good at, how I guide the women and the programs. We've tiptoed, but we've never really talked about that power, that transformational journey that's happening. So this allows us to really focus on the narrative coaching work I do. I'm coming out with leadership programs that are really engaged in storytelling and connecting. And really, it's a personal development business that helps women to connect, guide, and transform their lives through storytelling. So I am a master storyteller, and I'm ready to help women as they journey through that, whether it's personally or professionally. And we'll be focusing a lot more on that piece of the business. And we have a couple different divisions that we're calling out because I am a highly creative person. So I wanted to make sure that I held on to Fashion Meets Poetry as a creative outlet
Mm-hmm.
for any collaborations and different design work or poetry work that I still want to partake in. So there's a couple of different things that you can see when you go to our website, which now this is coming out in November, so it's new and
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about it. So that's really the work that, it's work we've been doing, but the world really hasn't kind of gotten a peek behind the curtain of Lisa Harris. It's more been the show and the events. And so it really is a great opportunity for me to start sharing my expertise, because I'm really good at what I do and I really love it.
You
So
are really good at what you do. And I know, because I've spoken with people who have utilized you and have partnered with you, and I get to be your friend, so I know how awesome you are. That being said, I think we've talked about like transforming and vulnerability, and what I love about you is that there isn't necessarily like it's not just geared towards entrepreneurs, and you have a space at the table for anyone. And I think a lot of times people think of storytelling as a space where, especially in the entrepreneur space, like, right, like you're in a space of selling your business and selling you, but as a corporate woman or a woman who is at home raising her children, like we all have a story to be told and to share, and how empowering it is to be able to have a support system in order to cultivate that.
yeah.
So who is somebody that would ideally fit into that space, not necessarily by title, but
Yeah.
by where they are in their soulful journey with life?
Yeah, it's a woman who's ready for growth and movement. Most of the women in this space are nailing it, whatever it is they're doing. I mean, most of them are. Whether they're entrepreneurs or corporate women or moms raising their family, they are nailing it right now. They're showing up every day and they're rocking it. But they're unsettled, and they haven't dealt with shadows in their lives. But they believe in hope and they're faithful women, and um, many of them do enjoy journaling or writing. I think that's kind of one of the things on this platform, whether it's something you do professionally or not. It's most of the women use that as either a non-traditional way of healing or, a place of solace that kind of, gives them a little bit more peace or comfort. I think a lot of the women do enjoy journaling or writing in some capacity, and just looking for connection. I think, that's honestly most of the women. That's what they look like in my space.
Yeah. And so if this describes you, I think that it's an awesome opportunity for you to circle with Lisa and have a conversation about being a part of this fantastic community that she is growing. And it truly is a sisterhood of sorts, and a support system for you. And so if that's something that you're looking for, we'll include where to find Lisa in all of the show notes, and tag her in all of the content that we post. I think as we transition into closing out this series, I wanted to make sure that we also talked about selfishly, like a little piece of how you feel around the aspects of wealth. And I say wealth in the elements of not just money, right? We assume wealth is money, but how do you define wealth in your life?
Wealth, when I first think of the word wealth, I think of rich.
Mm.
And when I think of rich, I think of richness. And when I think of richness, I think of life. Um, so to me, if I follow that path, wealth means being able to embrace all of life's journey. Um, yeah, I want to be rich. I want to be rich in the definition that my soul is full, my heart is full, and my mind is full. And so maybe wealth is having all of those pieces either full or on their way to being full. And to me, that's about relationships and knowledge and family. So I don't know. It's a good question.
I think you do know. I think you just defined it. And I think that that's such a great reminder as I continue to have conversations with people in my practice and my business. I often talk to them about their stories, and I talk to them about wealth not just being their money. Of course, that's usually why they're sitting down with me, right? Like that's my job. But at the end of the day, you can have millions and millions of dollars, and without defining your purpose and understanding for what you want with your life, it's just a tool in your toolbox and it's not functioning for you. Yeah. So being able to understand your story and your purpose and your vision of life, it gives you that sense of richness. And essentially, I think you hit the nail on the head of what wealth is. It's not just any specific thing, it's how they all come together.
Yeah.
So I mean, wow.
Yeah.
I'll drop the mic there. We'll end the conversation. No, I'm just kidding. But I know I said we'll include everybody, the show notes of where to find you, but what would be what's the platform you hang out on the most, and where can people connect with you the easiest?
Well, now it's November, so we're at www.lisaharrisandco.com.
Yeah.
And I hang out mostly on Facebook, but I would love to engage more on Insta. So, and then, you know, if you're looking for a super more professional angle, I'm on LinkedIn quite frequently because I have quite an extensive network from my corporate land, which I'll be tapping into a lot more with the storytelling leadership program that I'm rolling out next year.
Yes, and we'll have to talk about that next year because
I know.
We're not going to college about it. So no matter where you are in your journey, this is an opportunity for you to dig deep into your story and partner with Lisa. I can't tell you how wonderful a human you are. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom. I so greatly appreciate you doing this.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you for giving me some time on your platform to talk about what I love. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely.